Good morning, friends. Hope this finds you healthy, happy, excited, giddy for a weekend coming up. Hump day's behind us, so we're a day closer to the weekend. That's cool. Looks like this March Madness thing is going to be giving us one of the most classic matchups in NCAA history. So looking forward to the Duke North Carolina game. That'll be booming. That'll be great. Making for a great weekend of basketball to boot, so that's pretty awesome. With yesterday's discussion about the sobriety baby, it instantly kind of put me in mind of the idea of kind of sharing with you specifically about year one. And there's obviously no way I can fit an entire year into, a quick little 10-15 minute video here, so bear with me. But I thought more than anything, if I could kind of skim over that first year and share with you some of the highlights and some of the things that Sarah and I faced together. And I need to emphasize that because we don't do this alone. Whether we like to think that or not, many of us are in a very dark place when we come into sobriety. Obviously, most of us are in a dark place when we come into sobriety. We don't walk into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous or a recovery center because we're happy and we're joyous, right? We're broken. We're facing problems. We're dealing with some of the worst stuff that life has given us, up until that point. So, that noted, we've typically done a lot of damage, and in my case specifically, the damage that I had done was right there facing me every day, and my wife Sarah. So as much as it took me to run into that dark place in my life, I had her holding my hand as we walked out together, which is something I can't even put words on. A gratitude that completely escapes description. Save that. Put a pin in it. But either way, that first year, what we faced together was remarkable. She had recently started with MS symptoms as I was coming into sobriety. The diplopia, losing the vision, and specifically in her left eye. All of that had kind of led us to the doctors and medical professionals that we were visiting almost on a weekly basis at that point, trying to find out what was happening and ultimately landing on the multiple sclerosis diagnosis. So that was all kind of happening right there at that moment in our history. Me getting sober just made sense at the time, obviously, with everything else going on. Also, my drinking had certainly escalated, and there was no denying that. So it seemed like a natural progression, as I look back now, to kind of fall into sobriety and finally find some of those answers for myself. And it also provided a bit of a distraction from the medical stuff that was going on with Sarah. We were able to walk to open meetings together, and we were able to kind of pour ourselves into this part of what was happening for me, and that offered distraction as to what was happening with her. Also along the way, shortly after I got sober, the landlord for the home that we were living in decided he was going to sell the house, and Sarah and I would have to find another place to live. So that really started some negative thoughts, some negative attitudes. Obviously, I'm getting sober and I'm trying to turn my life around. All of this other stuff is happening with my wife's health. Losing our place to live certainly seems like the last possible, thing that we needed. But there it was, we were forced to deal with it. Also, I was to lose my job. I had, I think, 4 or 5 moving violations in about 6 months' time. I was driving courier for a local privately owned courier company named Steve's Delivery at the time. And Steve was so wonderful, as was his wife, so loving and patient and supportive of Sarah and I going through the things that we were going through with Sarah's health, that when it came time to obviously let me go, he was quite broken up about it. But realistically, I had 4 moving violations in, no short period of time. So there was no way, realistically, his insurance could justify him keeping me on at that point in time. So they had to let me go. I think I was clocked doing 40 over at one point. I had illegally ran a stop sign. I ended up with another speeding ticket, a smaller speeding ticket, and then an accident trying to creep out into traffic where I got kind of T-boned. The person didn't yield the right of way to me, but either way, it wasn't a blame game thing. These all resulted in significant fines to me specifically, and that eventually led me to kind of going to court asking for leniency and meeting with Saul Nosenchuk at the time, who ultimately just kind of waved his hand and made it all go away and gave me another chance. So you can imagine that in my first year of sobriety, getting that kiss to say, hey man, we're going to give you a break on this, don't come back into my courtroom, was a huge relief. But certainly all the stuff leading up to it, the moving violations, the car accident, the fines, having to make a court date, it was all very overwhelming, along with Sarah's health, plus losing our house to our place to live and having to find a new place to live. Like, this is what the first year of my sobriety looked like. It was one thing after another. But I want to emphasize that certainly losing our place to live wouldn't have been ideal. Where we ended up living right next door to an AA member was a huge kiss, a huge debt of gratitude that I'm eternally grateful for. Also, rather than having to walk 25-30 minutes to meetings, 15-20 minutes to meetings, that place and that AA member found me literally 5 minutes down the road from a meeting and on the way to the salt mine meetings. So as a lot of these AA members were driving out to the salt mine meeting, very popular meeting at the time in Windsor's AA history, I guess, they would always drive by that little block that I lived on, so it was nothing for them to hit the brakes, pick me up, and take me back and forth to the salt mine. It was fantastic for me. Also, all of those moving violations that I had, all of that stuff that had gone on when I was driving for Steve, led me to lose my job, but it also led me to unemployment insurance. And the counselor that I had, I won't say her name, but she was a wonderful, wonderful spot of light in my life at that point in time. It was her, this counselor in particular, who took the time to look at my history, recognized that I had never been without a job from the time I was 12, 13 years old. I had an employment history that went back that far, and she was able to take that and get me into a program that actually provided me a grade 12 graduate diploma, like equivalent of a 5th year diploma, by applying all of my work history to maturity credits, as long as I agreed to get specific grades for specific courses across a 9-month process, which I did handily. So what I'm trying to point out is that certainly Sarah's health condition was an incredibly difficult time for us, and continues to be challenging at times. Losing my job wasn't ideal. Losing the house that we lived in wasn't ideal. But each one of these things, 25 years later, as I look back, was directly leading me to the next part of my story. And better was always the answer at the end of that rainbow. The house we lived in, certainly we lost that, but we ended up in something so much better, in such an incredibly positive environment, and a better scenario for myself and my wife and children. Everything about that new place was better. Losing my job wasn't ideal. But all of the things that came after that were improvements that I didn't see at the time. They didn't feel like it, but they certainly were. This is the story. This is how it progresses. All of these things came together in that moment. I now had a grade 12 diploma. I now had a better place to live. I now had a very stable support network for Alcoholics Anonymous, having moved away from those things that were holding me back to something and to the people that were going to take me forward. All of this provided me brand new opportunities, brand new insights, brand new people, brand new relationships, ultimately giving me an opportunity to find a job in St. Thomas that I would have never even considered, and landing me here in Elmer, Ontario, the community that literally has lifted us and supported us and carried us all these years. The school system here in Elmer, Ontario, I gave them my children and they gave me incredibly brilliant young men. My daughter has received incredible accolades through her education. I mean, it's been an incredible story to consider and to look back at. And it all came from that first year. That first year that seemed like absolute turmoil as I was wandering through it. It seemed like one terrible thing after another, one bad news story after another. What we don't see in those moments is where we're being led, where we're being directed. So I just wanted to kind of get this one out there. Certainly something I would love to talk more about and hopefully articulate on a little more efficiently in the future. But at least having it here, being able to share that with you right now kind of gets it out of me and gives me kind of a rough framework that I might be able to come back to. It seems like I've done that a couple of times this week. So I'm going to hit the stop button on this one. I'm going to say thanks, guys. I'm going to give my mush bucket a bit of a rest today and see what tomorrow brings, man. Take care, guys. I love you, and I am cheering you on. It works if we work it, one day at a time.